Picture this. August 24th, 1992. Hurricane Andrew slams into South Florida with winds hitting 165 miles per hour. When the storm finally moves on, the damage is unreal. Over 25,000 modern homes are completely destroyed. Another 100,000 homes are badly damaged. Whole neighborhoods look like war zones. But here's the crazy part. Scattered across the Florida Everglades, traditional Seminole Chickees, some built using methods passed down for over 500 years, are still standing. These simple structures, made from nothing but cypress logs and palm leaves, rode out one of the most powerful hurricanes ever to hit the United States. While Hurricane Andrew destroyed over 63,000 modern homes, built with concrete, steel, and the latest construction codes, traditional Seminole Chickees remain standing. These aren't just old buildings, they're engineering marvels that modern science is finally starting to understand. Go back to the misty dawn in the Florida Everglades. Endless sawgrass prairies stretch to the horizon. Dark cypress trees rise from mirror-still water like ancient giants. Spanish moss hangs like nature's curtains. This is one of the harshest places in North America, a land of hurricanes, floods, deadly heat, and dangerous wildlife. Watch as skilled Seminole hands select the perfect palm frond. Each leaf must be just right, not too young, not too old. The timing matters. These hands have learned tricks passed down through generations. They know which cypress trees will bend without breaking. They understand how to weave palm leaves so tight that hurricane rains can't get through. FEMA disaster experts now study these traditional building methods. They want to know how structures built with Stone Age tools can outperform modern engineering. Military survival schools teach these techniques to Special Forces soldiers. Why? Because when everything else fails, ancient wisdom wills it still works. Step into a world where people had to get it right the first time. No hardware stores, no power tools, no second chances when hurricane season arrived. The Seminole people, pushed into the deadly Everglades by 3 wars with the US government, had to innovate or die. They chose to innovate. Feel the morning humidity that makes your clothes stick to your skin. Smell the rich earth and decaying plants. Hear the splash of an alligator sliding into dark water. Listen to the rhythmic sound of traditional tools shaping cypress posts. This is where hurricane-proof architecture was born. Imagine 150-mile-per-hour winds hitting your shelter. Modern houses fight the wind and lose, but watch what happens to a Chickee. The wind blows right through the open sides. The flexible palm roof bends but doesn't break. The cypress posts sway like trees in the forest. The whole structure dances with the storm instead of fighting it. Modern storm chasers and hurricane researchers are amazed by what they see. Dr. Sarah Chen, a wind engineering expert at Florida International University, puts it simply. These traditional structures understand something about hurricanes that we're still learning. See the moment when ancient engineering meets modern science. Researchers use wind tunnels to test Chickee roof designs. They discover that the traditional palm thatch is 40% more aerodynamic than modern roofing materials. Computer models show how the open wall design reduces wind pressure by up to 60%. Watch master Seminole builders like Bobby Frank, who learned from his grandfather and great-grandfather. His weathered hands move with incredible skill. Every knot, every angle, every choice of material comes from centuries of tested knowledge. My ancestors figured this out the hard way, he says. Hurricane after hurricane taught them what worked and what didn't. Structural engineers call Chickee design the most hurricane-proof architecture ever created by humans. But here's what makes it even more incredible. It's also the most sustainable. 0 concrete, 0 steel, 0 fossil fuels. Just materials that grow in the swamp, shaped by human knowledge that took 500 years to perfect. Stand next to a completed Chickee as storm clouds gather on the horizon. The structure looks almost too simple. 4 cypress posts, a slanted roof of woven palm fronds, no walls, no doors, no windows, but this simplicity is genius. Every element serves multiple purposes. Every detail has been tested by centuries of hurricanes. Feel what it's like to sit under a Chickee roof during a thunderstorm. Rain pounds overhead, but not a drop gets through. The palm thatch, laid in overlapping layers like fish scales, sheds water perfectly. Cool air flows through the open sides. Even in 95-degree heat and 90% humidity, the Chickee stays comfortable. Today, survival experts pay thousands of dollars to learn these techniques. Bushcraft instructors teach Chickee building at wilderness schools across the country. Sustainable architects study traditional methods for modern green buildings. Even NASA researchers look at Chickee design principles for structures that might work on Mars. You're about to learn the exact methods that created America's most hurricane-resistant architecture. The same techniques that kept the Seminole people safe through centuries of storms. The construction secrets that modern engineers are calling revolutionary, even though they're older than the United States itself. But to understand why this ancient architecture outperforms modern engineering, we need to journey into the unique world of the Seminole people and the environmental challenges that forged these remarkable innovations. You'll discover how 3 devastating wars, deadly swamps, and endless hurricanes forced the creation of building techniques so advanced that we're still trying to catch up. Go back to the early 1700s. Picture vast forests of Georgia and Alabama where the Creek people, a powerful confederation of 60 towns and nearly 20,000 people, lived in harmony with the land. These skilled farmers, hunters, and builders had perfected their way of life over thousands of years. But change was coming fast. European settlers pushed deeper into Creek territory. Wars broke out between different tribes. The old ways were under attack. Some Creek families made a hard choice. They would leave their ancestral homeland and seek peace in the wildlands of Spanish Florida. After the US Army drove them into the deadliest swamps in America, they had to innovate or die. What happened next created the most hurricane-resistant architecture ever built by human hands. Watch as small groups of Creek families pack their few belongings. They are heading south into a land most people call impossible to live in, the Florida Everglades. Spanish explorers called this place River of Grass. Native people who already lived there warned the newcomers about endless dangers: alligators, panthers, poisonous snakes, disease-carrying mosquitoes, and hurricanes that could kill entire villages. These Creek refugees didn't know they were about to become the Seminole people. The Spanish word cimarron meant wild, or free. Other tribes started using this word to describe the Creek people who chose the dangerous freedom of the swamps over the safety of staying put. Feel what it's like to enter the Everglades for the first time. Endless sawgrass stretches to every horizon. Dark water hides deadly creatures. The air is so thick with humidity you can almost drink it. Clouds of mosquitoes attack anything that moves. Most people would turn around and leave. The Creek refugees kept going deeper. By the 1750s, these hardy pioneers had learned to survive in the swamps. They found high ground on the tree islands, small patches of dry land surrounded by water and sawgrass. They learned which plants were safe to eat and which ones would kill you. They figured out how to catch fish, hunt deer, and avoid the alligators that could snap a canoe in Motau. Hurricane season meant 6 months of potential death. Every structure had to be perfect. One mistake in building and your whole family could die when the next storm hit. There was no room for error in the Everglades. But the Seminole people's biggest challenges were yet to come. The United States wanted Florida, and they wanted the Seminole people gone. 3 brutal wars followed. The First Seminole War, 1817 to 1818. The Second Seminole War, 1835 to 1842. And the Third Seminole War, 1855 to 1858. See the moment that changed everything. General Andrew Jackson led American troops deep into Florida. His orders were simple: remove all native people by force if necessary. But the Seminole people had nowhere else to go. Spain couldn't protect them. Other tribes couldn't help them. The only choice was to fight or disappear. Watch as Seminole families flee deeper into the Everglades after each battle. By 1838, the battles of Okeechobee and Loxahatchee forced thousands to retreat into the most remote parts of the swamp, places so dangerous that even the US Army wouldn't follow. This is where innovation became survival. The old Creek way of building permanent towns with solid log houses wouldn't work anymore. Seminole families had to move constantly to avoid army patrols. They needed shelters that could be built fast, abandoned quickly, and rebuilt at the next hiding spot. Enter the harsh world of the deep Everglades. Seasonal flooding covers the land for half the year. The dry season brings wildfires that can trap you on a tree island with nowhere to run. Hurricane season lasts from June to November, 6 months when any storm could be your last. Feel the pressure that shaped Seminole innovation. Every building material had to come from the swamp itself. No trips to distant forests for special wood. No trading with outsiders for metal tools. Everything you needed to survive had to be found within walking distance of your hiding place. Researchers found Chickee foundations dating back 400 years, virtually unchanged. The same construction techniques that worked in 1600 still work today. This isn't luck. This is engineering perfected through centuries of hurricanes. Watch skilled Seminole builders develop the Chickee design through trial and error. Early versions probably looked different. Some had partial walls, others used different roof angles, but every hurricane was a test. Structures that failed got rebuilt with improvements. Techniques that worked got passed down to the next generation. See the genius of Seminole settlement patterns. Unlike their Creek ancestors who built permanent towns, Seminole families created networks of seasonal camps. Wet season camps were built on the highest ground available. Dry season camps moved closer to water sources. Each family group knew exactly where to go when conditions changed. Picture a traditional Seminole camp in the 1800s, 3 or 4 chickees scattered across a tree island. The cooking chickee positioned downwind to keep smoke away from sleeping areas. The storage chickee built extra high to protect food from floods, each structure perfectly placed to work with the others. Listen to the sounds of traditional knowledge being passed down. Seminole elders teaching children how to read weather signs, which cypress trees made the strongest posts, when palm fronds were ready for harvest, how to weave thatch so tight that hurricane rains couldn't get through. This wasn't written down in books, it lived in the minds and hands of master builders. While losing their homeland, they created the most hurricane-proof architecture in North America. The same government that tried to destroy them now studies their building techniques for disaster relief housing. Modern archaeologists are amazed by what they find at old Seminole sites. Dr. Robert Carr, who has studied Everglades archaeology for 40 years, says, "The consistency is incredible. Chickee construction methods barely changed over centuries because they were already perfect for this environment. Feel the weight of oral tradition that preserved this knowledge. No written blueprints, no construction manuals, just master builders teaching apprentices the way their grandfathers had taught them. Every technique tested by real hurricanes, every innovation proven by survival." Watch how Seminole communities organized their knowledge systems. The best builders weren't just skilled workers, they were walking libraries of construction wisdom. They remembered which techniques worked in Category 1 storms versus Category 5 monsters. They knew how to modify designs for different seasons, different terrains, different family sizes. See the moment when modern researchers first understood what they were looking at. In the 1970s, anthropologist Carrie Dilley began documenting traditional Chickee construction. She found techniques so sophisticated that engineering professors struggled to explain why they worked so well. Modern wind tunnel tests prove what Seminole builders knew by experience. The traditional roof angle sheds rain perfectly while reducing wind resistance by 40%. The open wall design eliminates the pressure buildup that destroys conventional buildings. The flexible cypress frame bends with hurricane winds instead of fighting them. Today, the Seminole tribe of Florida and the Miccosukee tribe continue these traditions. Master builders like Bobby Frank, Moses Jumper Jr. and others maintain the old knowledge while adapting it for modern needs. They build chickees for cultural centers, tourist attractions, and family gatherings. The same techniques that kept their ancestors alive now connect modern Seminole people to their heritage. Stand in the present-day Big Cypress Reservation. Traditional chickees dot the landscape alongside modern homes. Seminole children learn construction techniques alongside their regular school subjects. The knowledge that once meant survival now means cultural identity. This incredible cultural adaptation created the foundation for engineering genius. Now let's dive into the exact step-by-step methods these master builders developed to create hurricane-proof shelters using nothing but swamp materials. Picture a master Seminole builder named Bobby standing at the edge of a tree island in the heart of the Everglades. Dawn mist rises from dark water. His weathered hands run along a cypress trunk, feeling for something only experience can teach. This tree will become the foundation of a hurricane-proof shelter that could last for decades. This single lashing technique distributes hurricane forces across the entire structure. While modern buildings fight the wind and break, traditional chickees dance with storms and survive. Watch how centuries of testing created this engineering masterpiece. See Bobby's eyes examine the cypress tree. He's looking for specific signs. The bark must be thick and healthy, no insect damage, no rot, no cracks. The trunk needs to be straight for at least 12 feet. Most important, the tree must have the right spring, enough flexibility to bend without breaking, but enough strength to support heavy loads. Feel the rough bark under skilled fingers. Bobby pushes against the trunk, testing how much it gives. Too stiff and it will snap in hurricane winds. Too flexible and it won't support the roof. This tree passes the test. With his traditional adze, a hand tool with a curved blade, he begins the careful work of harvesting. Watch as the adze shapes the cypress post with smooth, rhythmic strokes. Each cut removes exactly the right amount of wood. No power tools, no measurements, just knowledge passed down through generations. The post emerges perfectly round, about 8 inches thick, with a slight taper from bottom to top. But selecting posts is just the beginning. Bobby needs 4 posts for a basic chickee, each one chosen for its specific job. Corner posts must be the strongest. They'll carry the most weight. The posts that will face into prevailing winds need extra flexibility. Each piece of wood has a purpose that was figured out centuries ago. Why this specific palm frond timing creates waterproofing? Modern materials can't match. Harvest too early and they'll rot. Too late and they'll leak. But get the timing perfect, and you have natural shingles that shed water better than anything humans have invented. Move to the palmetto grove where Bobby selects his roofing materials. He's looking for cabbage palm fronds, but not just any fronds. They must be fully mature but not old. The perfect frond is bright green with no brown edges, completely opened, and just starting to show the first tiny signs of aging. Feel how Bobby tests each frond. He bends the leaflets between his fingers, checking their flexibility. He examines the spine, the central backbone of the frond, for strength and straightness. He even smells the fronds, detecting any hint of decay that would mean quick failure on the roof. Watch the careful harvest. Bobby cuts each frond at exactly the right angle, leaving enough stem to work with, but not so much that it becomes unwieldy. He bundles the fronds immediately, keeping them organised by size and quality. The best ones will go on the most exposed parts of the roof. Smaller or imperfect fronds will work fine for areas that get less weather. Now comes the foundation work that makes chickees hurricane-proof. Bobby marks 4 spots on the ground in a perfect rectangle, 12 feet by 16 feet for a family-sized chickee. But these aren't random measurements. The proportions were perfected through centuries of storms. See how Bobby prepares the ground. In the flood-prone Everglades, drainage is everything. He digs each post hole slightly deeper than necessary, then fills the bottom with loose stones and shell fragments. This creates a drainage system that keeps water from pooling around the posts and causing rot. The entire structure flexes with hurricane winds instead of fighting them. Modern buildings use rigid connections that transfer storm forces directly to the foundation. Traditional chickees use flexible joints that absorb and redirect wind energy. It's like the difference between a rigid tree branch that snaps and a palm tree that bends. Watch Bobby set the first post. He doesn't just drop it in the hole and pack dirt around it. The post goes in at a slight angle, just a few degrees off, perfectly vertical. This creates what engineers call preloading. The post is already under a tiny bit of stress that helps it handle bigger loads later. Feel the precision as Bobby aligns all 4 posts. They must be perfectly plumb with each other, but each one has that slight individual angle. When hurricane winds hit, these angles work together to distribute forces around the entire structure instead of concentrating stress at any single point. Now comes the framework that ties everything together. Bobby pulls out bundles of thin vines and roots that he harvested and prepared months ago. Some are from wild grapevines, others from tough swamp roots. Each type has different properties. Some are stretchy, others are incredibly strong, some resist water damage better than others. See the genius of traditional lashing techniques. Bobby doesn't just tie things together randomly. Each joint uses a specific pattern of wrapping that was designed for its exact job. Corner joints get one pattern that handles multidirectional stress. Roof support joints get a different pattern, optimized for downward loads and upward wind forces. This traditional tool cuts construction time by 70% compared to modern methods. The Seminole fro splits palm fronds into perfect thatching strips faster than any machine. One tool shaped by hand that does what takes modern builders multiple power tools to accomplish. Watch Bobby use his traditional fro, a hand tool that looks like a knife with a handle on the side. With quick, precise motions, he splits palm fronds lengthwise into the strips exactly the right width for thatching. Each strip is perfectly uniform, with no waste, no measuring, no power required. Feel the rhythm as Bobby prepares hundreds of thatching strips. The fro makes a distinctive pop sound as each frond splits cleanly. His hands move without hesitation. Decades of practice have taught him exactly how much pressure to apply, which angle to hold the tool, how to follow the natural grain of the palm. Now comes the roof construction that makes Chickees waterproof. Bobby starts at the bottom edge and works upward, just like modern shingles, but instead of rigid materials that crack under stress, he's using flexible palm strips that move with the building. See how each row of thatch overlaps the one below it. Bobby folds each palm strip in half lengthwise, creating a natural gutter that channels water away. The strips are laid so close together that not even wind-driven rain can penetrate. Layer upon layer builds up until the roof is 8 inches thick at the bottom, tapering to 4 inches at the peak. Watch the lashing technique that holds everything together. Bobby uses a special pattern that pulls each row of thatch tight against the one below it. The lashing also creates flexibility. When wind hits the roof, the entire surface can move slightly without breaking the water seal. Master builders test every joint with techniques more rigorous than modern building codes. Bobby pulls on each lashing with his full body weight. He walks on the roof before it's finished to test for weak spots. Every connection must pass tests that were developed through centuries of hurricane survival. Feel the systematic testing that follows construction. Bobby grabs each post and rocks it back and forth, checking for any looseness in the foundation. He puts his full weight on each roof beam, making sure the lashing joints are tight. He even climbs on the unfinished roof, walking carefully to identify any spots that feel weak. Watch the water test that proves the roof works. Bobby takes a bucket of water and pours it slowly over different sections of thatch. Perfect construction sheds every drop without a single leak. If water penetrates anywhere, that section gets rebuilt until it's perfect. See the wind resistance test that saves lives. Bobby and his helpers grab the corner posts and shake the entire structure as hard as they can. A properly built Chickee flexes dramatically, but never feels like it might collapse. The flexible joints absorb the energy and distribute it harmlessly throughout the frame. The final step is something modern builders never think about, teaching the Chickee to shed water. Bobby takes palm oil and rubs it into the thatch at the specific stress points. This natural waterproofing penetrates deep into the palm fibres, creating a barrier that keeps moisture out while still allowing the roof to breathe. Feel what it's like inside a completed Chickee during a thunderstorm. Rain pounds on the roof with incredible force, but not a single drop gets through. The thick thatch absorbs the sound, creating a peaceful space while nature rages outside. Cool air flows through the open sides, keeping the interior comfortable even in sweltering humidity. Watch how the structure responds to wind. As gusts hit the Chickee, the entire building sways gently. The flexible frame bends with the wind instead of fighting it. The palm roof ripples like water, dissipating wind energy across its entire surface. Even in hurricane conditions, occupants feel secure because the building moves with the storm instead of resisting it. Modern engineers are amazed by details they're just beginning to understand. The roof angle, typically between 35 and 45 degrees, is perfect for Florida's wind and rain patterns. Steeper angles create too much wind resistance. Shallower angles don't shed water effectively. The traditional angle, developed through centuries of trial and error, is mathematically optimal. See the genius of the raised floor system. The Chickee platform sits 3 to 4 feet off the ground on the cypress posts. This keeps the living space above flood levels, improves air circulation, and protects stored goods from ground moisture. The platform itself is made from split palm trunks, lashed together to create a flexible surface that moves with the frame. Feel the comfort systems built into traditional design. The roof overhang extends 4 feet beyond the walls on all sides, creating maximum shade during hot afternoons. The open sides allow constant air circulation, but the roof angle protects against wind-driven rain. Every detail serves multiple purposes, perfected through generations of use. Watch a master builder's final inspection. Bobby walks around the completed Chickee, checking every detail one more time. He tests each lashing knot, examines every row of thatch, verifies that all posts are properly aligned. This structure will need to protect his family through hurricane seasons for years to come. There's no room for mistakes. The tools get cleaned and maintained with the same care that went into construction. The adze blade gets sharpened on natural stones. Lashing materials are sorted and stored for future use. Bobby teaches his grandson which tools are used for which jobs, passing down knowledge that took a lifetime to master. Stand back and admire a completed traditional Chickee. It looks almost too simple, 4 posts, a slanted roof, no walls, but every element represents centuries of refinement. This isn't primitive construction, it's engineering optimized for one of the harshest environments on Earth. Modern survivalists and hurricane researchers are studying these techniques with new respect. Dr. Sarah Martinez from the University of Florida's Engineering Department says, every time we analyze traditional Seminole construction, we find another detail that modern building science is just beginning to understand. These fundamental techniques are just the beginning. Master Seminole builders developed incredible variations and advanced applications that adapted these methods for every challenge the Everglades could deliver. From specialized cooking chickees to multi-story ceremonial structures, traditional knowledge created solutions for every need. Picture a traditional Seminole camp during the peak of wet season. Water stretches as far as you can see, turning the Everglades into a vast, shallow lake. But rising above the floodwaters like islands of engineering genius, a cluster of chickees stands perfectly dry and comfortable. Summer chickees are completely rebuilt with different techniques than winter versions. Master builders don't just modify existing structures, they tear them down and rebuild from scratch using seasonal knowledge that modern engineers are just beginning to understand. Watch Master Builder Moses Jumper Jr. as he examines the rising water levels in early June. His experienced eyes see what others miss. This summer's floods will be higher than usual. The standard Chickee design won't be enough. Time for the advanced wet season techniques that his grandfather taught him. See how Moses selects different cypress posts for summer construction? These trees must be taller, at least 16 feet instead of the usual 12. But height isn't enough. Summer posts need extra flexibility to handle the stronger winds that come with hurricane season. Moses tests each trunk by pushing against it, feeling for that perfect balance of strength and spring. Feel the extra care that goes into summer foundation work. Moses digs each post hole 2 feet deeper than normal winter construction. But here's the genius part. He doesn't pack dirt around the posts. Instead, he creates a drainage system using layers of shells, gravel, and loose sand. When floodwaters rise, they flow around and under the posts without creating the suction that can topple rigid foundations. Cooking chickees include smoke management systems more advanced than modern range hoods. Watch how traditional builders create natural ventilation that pulls smoke up and out while keeping rain from getting in. It's engineering that took centuries to perfect. Enter the heart of any traditional Seminole camp, the cooking chickee. This isn't just a shelter with a fire pit. It's a sophisticated environmental control system designed to handle the unique challenges of cooking in the humid, stormy Everglades. Watch as master builder Betty Mae Jumper explains the smoke management system her family has used it for generations. The cooking chickee roof has a special peak design, not pointed like regular chickees, but with a gap that runs the entire length of the ridge. This gap, covered by overlapping palm fronds that work like natural louvers, allows smoke to escape while keeping rain out. Feel the genius of the cooking fire placement. The fire pit sits exactly in the centre of the chickee, equidistant from all 4 corner posts, but it's not just centred randomly. The fire location creates perfect air circulation. Cool air flows in through the open sides, rises as it heats up and carries smoke up and out through the ridge vents. See the advanced thatching technique used only for cooking chickees. The palm fronds are laid in a special pattern that creates tiny gaps for airflow while still blocking rain. Master builders call this breathing thatch. It looks solid from the outside, but air moves through it like it's alive. Coastal Seminoles developed techniques that big cypress builders never needed. Salt air, stronger winds, and different flooding patterns created completely different challenges. The solutions they invented would amaze modern marine architects, travel to the coastal areas where some Seminole families lived near the Gulf of Mexico. Here, the environmental challenges are completely different from the inland Everglades. Salt air corrodes materials faster. Hurricane winds are stronger. Storm surges bring different flooding patterns. Watch coastal master builder Johnny Billy demonstrate techniques unknown to inland builders. His chickees use a different type of lashing made from plant fibers that resist salt corrosion. The cordage is soaked in natural oils that create a waterproof barrier. protecting the joints from the destructive effects of salt spray. Feel the different roof angle used in coastal construction. While inland chickees typically use a 35 to 40 degree roof pitch, coastal structures drop to 30 degrees. This lower angle reduces wind resistance during the stronger hurricanes that hit the coast. The trade-off is less efficient rain shedding, but coastal builders compensate with thicker thatch and different layering patterns. See the specialized foundation technique developed for storm surge protection. Coastal chickees use a floating foundation system where the posts aren't buried as deep as inland structures. When storm surge arrives, the entire building can actually lift slightly, riding on top of the floodwater instead of fighting it. Category 5 preparations include structural modifications that modern buildings don't have. Traditional builders add hurricane bracing, emergency escape routes, and rapid disassembly features that let families survive storms that destroy everything else. Stand with Elder, builder Bobby Frank, as he prepares his family's chickees for what weather signs tell him will be a massive hurricane. His grandfather's knowledge speaks through his hands as he makes modifications that could mean the difference between life and death. Watch the hurricane bracing technique passed down through generations. Bobby adds diagonal support posts at 45-degree angles between the main corner posts and the ground. But these aren't permanent additions. They are designed to be quickly installed when danger approaches and easily removed when the storm passes. Feel the tension as Bobby demonstrates the emergency disassembly system. In extreme circumstances, when even chickees might not survive, traditional builders designed their structures to come apart quickly. Special breakaway lashings release under extreme stress, allowing the roof to blow away rather than taking the entire structure with it. See the family evacuation plan built into chickee design. Every traditional camp includes at least one storm chickee, a smaller, extra strong structure built specifically for riding out hurricanes. These emergency shelters use the strongest posts available, extra thick lashing, and lower profiles that offer less wind resistance. Advanced builders create multi-story chickees using principles engineers are just discovering. These aren't primitive tree houses, they are sophisticated structures that use weight distribution and wind dynamics in ways modern architecture barely understands. Watch master builder Willie Frank demonstrate the advanced techniques used for larger, more complex structures. When Seminole communities needed gathering spaces for ceremonies or big family events, master builders created extended chickees that could shelter 50 or more people. See the genius of the modular expansion system. Instead of building one enormous structure, master builders connect multiple standard chickees using specialized joining techniques. Each module maintains its own structural integrity while contributing to the strength of the overall complex. Feel the precision of the advanced joinery used in large structures. Master builders use a technique called stress sharing, where loads are distributed across multiple connection points. If one joint fails during a storm, the others automatically take up the extra stress, preventing total collapse. Watch the construction of a traditional gathering chickee, a structure that covers over 1,000 square feet using nothing but traditional materials and techniques. The roof system uses a complex network of palm beam trusses that distribute weight so efficiently that the entire structure weighs less per square foot than most modern buildings. See the advanced ventilation system designed for large gatherings. Master builders create a thermal chimney effect using carefully calculated roof angles and strategic openings. Hot air from cooking fires and body heat rises naturally, pulling cool air in through lower openings. The system keeps hundreds of people comfortable without any mechanical ventilation. Modern structural engineers who study these techniques are amazed by what they find. Dr. Roberto Santos from Florida International University says, "The load distribution in a traditional large chickee is more sophisticated than many contemporary buildings. They understood principles we're just rediscovering." Feel what it's like to stand inside a completed gathering chickee during a community event. Families from across the region sit together under the massive palm roof. Cooking fires provide light and warmth. Children play safely on the raised platform. The structure flexes gently in the wind, but feels absolutely solid. Watch the community construction process that builds these advanced structures. Unlike simple family chickees that one person can construct, large gathering spaces require coordination between multiple master builders. Each specialist contributes specific skills, post-selection, advanced joinery, complex thatching, or specialized lashing techniques. See the traditional quality control that ensures these complex structures will survive decades of use. Master builders test every joint not just with their hands, but by having multiple people stand on different sections of the platform. They pour water over the completed roof to verify that every square foot sheds rain properly, stand in a completed traditional village and see how individual chickees work together as a community system. The cooking chickee is positioned downwind from sleeping areas. Storage chickees are built slightly higher to protect goods from the highest possible floods. Gathering spaces are centrally located but oriented to catch prevailing breezes. Feel the genius of traditional community planning. Chickee placement creates natural windbreaks that protect the entire camp. Walking paths between structures follow the natural drainage patterns of the tree island. Even the spacing between buildings serves multiple purposes: fire protection, privacy, and optimal air circulation. Modern urban planners study traditional Seminole community layouts for lessons about sustainable development. Dr. Maria Rodriguez from the University of Miami's School of Architecture explains, these communities achieved perfect harmony with their environment using principles that modern cities desperately need. Watch contemporary Seminole builders like Pedro Zepeda continuing these traditions while adapting them for modern needs. Pedro builds traditional chickees for cultural centers, tourist attractions, and family gatherings. He uses the same techniques his great-grandfather taught him, but he also experiments with modifications that make the structures more suitable for contemporary uses. See how traditional knowledge adapts to modern challenges. Contemporary chickee builders face new issues their ancestors never encountered: building codes, insurance requirements, modern tools availability, but the fundamental principles remain the same because they're based on unchanging natural laws. Modern applications prove the continued value of traditional innovations. Survival schools teach chickee construction to military personnel and emergency responders. Sustainable architecture firms incorporate traditional ventilation and structural principles into contemporary buildings. Hurricane researchers study traditional techniques for insights into storm-resistant design. These advanced traditional innovations haven't been forgotten. Modern experts, from military survival instructors to hurricane researchers, are rediscovering why Seminole engineering principles work better than contemporary alternatives. Picture a classified military training facility deep in the Florida swamps. Navy SEAL instructor Mike Torres stands next to a traditional chickee that his team built in just 4 hours using only swamp materials. Around him, Special Forces candidates from multiple branches learn construction techniques that could save their lives in hostile territory. Navy SEALs learn chickee construction because it outperforms modern tactical shelters. When high-tech equipment fails in jungle warfare, these 500-year-old techniques still work. That's why the military now teaches traditional building methods alongside modern survival skills. Watch as Torres demonstrates why Special Forces now study indigenous construction. Modern tactical shelters require specialized materials, specific tools, and perfect conditions. But in real combat situations, soldiers often have nothing but what nature provides. Traditional techniques work anywhere, anytime, with materials found in almost any environment. Feel the intensity as SEAL candidates practice rapid chickee construction under combat conditions. They have 6 hours to build a shelter that will keep their team dry and hidden during a simulated enemy search. No power tools, no manufactured materials, no second chances, just the knowledge that indigenous peoples perfected through centuries of survival. See Torres test each completed structure with military precision. He pours water over the roof to check for leaks. He shakes the frame to verify structural integrity. He even has the builders sleep in their shelters during a thunderstorm. Structures that fail these tests mean candidates who could die in real missions. Modern military survival manuals now include sections on traditional construction. The Army's updated SERE training incorporates indigenous building techniques from multiple cultures. Special operations units study traditional methods because they provide backup solutions when modern equipment fails. Wind tunnel testing shows traditional roof systems are 40% more aerodynamic than modern designs. University researchers put chickee models in hurricane simulators and discovered engineering principles that modern builders completely missed. Science is finally catching up to traditional knowledge. Step into the Wind Engineering Laboratory at Florida International University. Dr. Sarah Chen positions a scale model Chickee in the massive wind tunnel that can simulate Category 5 hurricane conditions. She's about to test theories that could revolutionize how we build in hurricane zones. Watch as 200-mile-per-hour winds hit the traditional roof design. Instead of the catastrophic failure that destroys most modern structures, the Chickee model flexes and bends. The palm-thatched roof literally changes shape to reduce wind resistance. Modern rigid roofs create pressure buildup that tears buildings apart. Traditional roofs dissipate that pressure through flexibility. Feel the excitement as Dr. Chen analyzes the data. The traditional roof angle isn't random to it's mathematically optimal for Florida's wind patterns. The palm-thatched layering creates micro-vortices that reduce overall wind loading by up to 40%. Even the traditional post spacing follows aerodynamic principles that modern engineers are just discovering. See the materials testing that validates traditional knowledge. Dr. Chen's team subjects traditional lashing techniques to stress tests using modern equipment. The results shock them. Traditional vine lashings under extreme stress actually get stronger, tightening their grip as forces increase. Modern fasteners fail catastrophically when overloaded. Hurricane researchers discovered traditional joinery actually gets stronger under extreme stress. While modern connections break suddenly when overloaded, traditional lashings tighten and redistribute forces automatically. It's like the joints are alive, adapting to whatever nature throws at them. Enter the structural engineering lab at the University of Miami. Professor Roberto Santos has spent 3 years studying traditional joinery techniques. His testing equipment applies precisely controlled stress to traditional connections while measuring their response. Watch as Santos demonstrates the stress-sharing phenomenon in traditional lashings. As he increases the load on one joint, sensors show how the stress automatically redistributes to other connections in the network. Modern bolted joints transfer stress in predictable patterns. Traditional latchings create dynamic load paths that change as conditions change. Feel the wonder as Santos explains what he's learned. Traditional builders created adaptive structures without understanding the engineering principles involved. The flexible connections allow buildings to literally reshape themselves during storms. Modern rigid buildings fight hurricanes and lose. Traditional buildings dance with hurricanes and survive. See the computer modeling that proves traditional superiority. Santos uses advanced software to simulate hurricane forces on both traditional and modern structures. The models show that traditional buildings experience 60% less stress during equivalent storms. The secret is flexibility, the ability to bend without breaking. According to FEMA engineers, Chickee principles could revolutionize disaster housing. Emergency management experts are studying traditional techniques for rapid deployment shelters that cost less, work better, and use locally available materials. The future of disaster relief might look a lot like the past. Meet Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, FEMA's lead researcher on emergency housing solutions. Her team studies traditional building techniques from around the world, looking for rapid deployment solutions that work in real disasters. Chickee principles keep showing up as optimal designs for emergency shelters. Watch Dr. Rodriguez test a modern emergency shelter inspired by traditional design. Built using Chickee principles but with contemporary materials, the shelter goes up in 2 hours with basic tools. More importantly, it stays up in conditions that destroy FEMA trailers and other modern emergency housing. Feel the urgency in Rodriguez's voice as she explains the need for better disaster housing. Climate change means more frequent, more powerful storms. Traditional FEMA housing takes the weeks to deploy and often fails in the very conditions it's designed for. Traditional techniques offer proven solutions that work immediately. See the cost analysis that shows traditional advantages. A traditional-inspired emergency shelter costs 70% less than standard FEMA housing. It requires no special tools, no trained technicians, no imported materials. Local people can build them using techniques they can learn in hours instead of years. Sustainable architects now charge premium prices for buildings using these traditional techniques. Green building clients pay extra for indigenous-inspired design that reduces energy costs, survives extreme weather, and connects people to natural systems. Ancient wisdom has become luxury modern design. Enter the Miami office of sustainable architecture firm Eco Design Associates. Principal architect Maria Santos shows off their latest project, a luxury resort that incorporates traditional Chickee principles into modern buildings. Wealthy clients pay millions for structures that work like indigenous wisdom. Watch as Santos explains how traditional techniques solve modern problems. The resort buildings use natural ventilation systems inspired by traditional design. Cooling costs drop by 80% compared to conventional buildings. Guests stay comfortable without air conditioning, even in Florida's brutal summer heat. Feel the materials as Santos demonstrates traditional-inspired construction. Modern buildings use certified sustainable materials that mimic traditional properties. Synthetic thatch provides the insulation and weather resistance of palm fronds. Engineered posts offer the flexibility of cypress while meeting modern building codes. See the client testimonials that prove market demand. Resort guests specifically request rooms in the traditional-inspired buildings. They sleep better, feel more connected to nature, and experience lower stress levels. Ancient design principles create modern wellness benefits that hotels can charge premium prices for. Visit wilderness survival schools where instructors teach Chickee construction to paying students. Survival expert John Campbell runs courses that charge $2,000 per week to teach traditional building techniques. Corporate executives, military veterans, and outdoor enthusiasts learn skills their ancestors took for granted. Watch Campbell's students struggle with techniques that seem simple until you try them. Selecting the right cypress posts, preparing palm fronds properly, creating flexible lashings that hold under stress. Each step requires knowledge that takes years to master. Students gain deep respect for indigenous engineering genius. Feel the transformation as modern people connect with traditional wisdom. Students arrive thinking they understand construction because they've watched YouTube videos. They leave humbled by the sophistication of techniques they initially dismissed as primitive. Traditional knowledge challenges modern assumptions about progress and technology. See the research validation that supports modern applications. Universities across the country now study traditional building techniques as solutions to contemporary challenges. Climate change, resource scarcity, and extreme weather make traditional approaches increasingly relevant to modern problems. Modern applications extend far beyond individual buildings. Urban planners study traditional community layouts for lessons about disaster-resistant neighborhood design. Emergency response teams practice rapid deployment of traditional-inspired shelters. Even space agencies examine traditional techniques for potential Mars habitats. Dr. James Wilson from NASA's Advanced Construction Technology program explains, traditional builders solved problems we're still working on. They created structures that were sustainable, resilient, and adaptable, using only natural materials. Those are exactly the qualities we need for space exploration. Watch as researchers test traditional techniques under extreme conditions. Chickee principles work in Arctic cold, desert heat, and tropical storms. The flexibility that makes them hurricane-resistant also helps them handle thermal expansion, ground shifting, and other challenges that destroy rigid modern structures. Modern testing validates what indigenous peoples knew through experience. Traditional techniques aren't primitive. They are sophisticated solutions developed through centuries of real-world testing. Modern science doesn't prove traditional knowledge wrong. It proves traditional knowledge right. With this scientific validation backing up centuries of traditional knowledge, you're ready to learn how to implement these proven techniques in your own modern applications. Picture yourself standing in your backyard looking at the materials laid out before you. Sustainable cypress posts from a certified supplier, palm thatch from a Florida harvester who works directly with traditional builders, natural cordage made from the same plant fibers Seminole masters have used for centuries. You're about to build your first Chickee, and you want to do it right. These building code exemptions make traditional techniques legal in most areas. While Chickees built by tribal members get full exemptions from Florida building code, non-tribal builders can still use traditional principles for structures under 400 square feet without permits in most counties. The key is understanding exactly what's allowed where you live. Start with the legal framework that protects your project. Florida Statute 553.73 provides specific exemptions for traditional Chickee construction, but these primarily apply to tribal members. However, most Florida counties allow structures under 400 square feet without building permits, as long as they are not permanent foundations and don't connect to utilities. Check your local zoning laws before breaking ground. Call your county building department and ask about temporary agricultural structures or camping shelters. Many areas classify traditional style structures as agricultural buildings if they're used for storage or outdoor activities. This classification often comes with relaxed building requirements. Feel the relief of understanding your options. You don't need to be a tribal member to learn from traditional techniques. What you're building is a garden shelter, outdoor workshop, or emergency preparedness structure. Use traditional methods and materials, but make sure your purpose and size comply with local regulations. This single supplier provides 90% of materials needed for authentic construction. Safari Thatch in southwest Florida has supplied traditional palm thatch to builders across the country for over 20 years. Their owner, Linda Norris, learned harvesting techniques directly from Seminole master builders and maintains the quality standards that traditional construction requires. Navigate the world of sustainable material sourcing with confidence. Safari Thatch, Forever Bamboo, and Palm-thatched International are your primary sources for authentic palm thatch. These suppliers understand the difference between decorative tiki materials and structural thatching that must shed water and resist hurricane winds. See the quality differences that matter. Traditional building requires specific palm species harvested at exact times. Cabbage palm fronds must be fully mature but not aged. The timing window is just 2 to 3 weeks per year when the fronds have maximum strength and water resistance. Commercial suppliers who understand this timing provide materials that will last decades instead of seasons. Watch as you learn to evaluate cypress posts. Traditional builders prefer bald cypress that's been naturally seasoned for at least 2 years. The wood should feel solid but not brittle, with tight grain patterns and minimal knots. Sustainable suppliers like Southern Cross Tikis harvest cypress using methods that don't damage swamp ecosystems. Feel the difference in natural cordage. Traditional lashing materials come from specific plant fibres, wild grapevines, palmetto stems, or specially prepared cypress roots. Modern suppliers offer these materials pre-processed and tested for strength. A 50-foot bundle of traditional grade vine cordage costs about $40 and provides enough lashing for a standard chickee. Traditional techniques are actually safer than modern methods when properly implemented. While modern construction accidents often involve power tools and falls from heights, traditional building happens close to the ground using hand tools. The biggest safety concern is proper lifting technique when positioning posts. Integrate modern safety standards with traditional methods seamlessly. OSHA construction knee. Safety principles apply even to traditional building. Wear safety glasses when using traditional adzes or splitting tools. Use work gloves to prevent cuts from palm fronds. Most importantly, never work alone. Traditional building was always a community activity. Watch how traditional tool safety exceeds modern standards. Traditional adzes and froes require more skill but create fewer injuries than power tools. The cutting motion is controlled and deliberate. There's no spinning blade to lose control of, no electrical hazard to worry about. Master builders developed safety techniques through centuries of use. Feel the importance of proper foundation safety. Traditional post setting involves digging holes 3 to 4 feet deep. Call 811 before digging to locate underground utilities. Use proper excavation techniques. Never enter holes deeper than your waist without proper shoring. Traditional builders understood soil stability better than most modern contractors. See the natural material safety considerations modern builders miss. Palm fronds can harbour insects or cause allergic reactions in sensitive people. Cypress posts may contain fungi that cause respiratory irritation. Always wear dust masks when processing traditional materials and inspect materials for insect nests or visible fungal growth. Master this progression and you'll build hurricane-proof shelters in any environment. The traditional learning path starts with a simple lean-to shelter, advances to a basic chickee, then progresses to specialised structures. Each level builds skills you'll need for the next challenge. Follow the proven learning pathway that develops competence safely. Start with a weekend practice project, a small storage shed or garden shelter using traditional techniques. This first build teaches material handling, basic lashing, and structural principles without the pressure of creating something you'll depend on for survival. Week 1. Build a simple A-frame lean-to using modern materials but traditional joinery. This teaches you how flexible lashing systems work without committing to expensive palm thatch. Use rope instead of vines, plywood instead of palm fronds. Focus on understanding structural principles. Week 2 to 3. Source authentic materials and build a small chickee platform, just the raised floor system without the roof. This teaches post-selection, foundation techniques, and platform construction. Practice lashing techniques until they become automatic. Test your platform by walking on it, jumping on it, loading it with weight. Week 4 to 6. Add the roof system to your platform. Start with partial roof coverage using just a few palm thatch bundles. Learn thatching techniques, water shedding at angles, and attachment methods. Test your roof sections during rainstorms before completing the full structure. Feel the skill development process that masters use. Traditional builders spent years perfecting their craft. Don't expect to build a hurricane-resistant structure on your first attempt. Each project teaches lessons that make the next one better. Keep detailed notes about what works and what doesn't. This family saved $50,000 building their disaster shelter using traditional methods. When Hurricane Ian threatened southwest Florida in 2022, the Martinez family rode out the Category 4 storm in their backyard Chickee, while their neighbours evacuated to crowded shelters. Their traditional shelter suffered no damage while modern buildings around them lost roofs and walls. Learn from successful modern applications that prove traditional techniques work. The Martinez family started with a weekend workshop on traditional building. Over 6 months, they built a large Chickee designed specifically for hurricane shelter. Total material cost $2,800. Equivalent modern storm shelter $53,000. See the emergency preparedness applications that save lives. Traditional shelters can be pre-positioned in secure locations, ready for immediate use during disasters. Unlike FEMA trailers that take weeks to deploy, traditional emergency shelters can be occupied immediately. They require no electrical connections, no special foundations, no imported materials. Watch how off-grid living applications reduce monthly expenses. Traditional cooling techniques eliminate air conditioning costs. Natural ventilation and thermal mass principles keep traditional structures comfortable in extreme heat. The Miller family in rural Georgia cut their utility bills by 80% after building a traditional-inspired homestead using Chickee ventilation principles. Feel the satisfaction of sustainable living applications. Traditional building uses materials that grow locally and regenerate naturally. Palm fronds regrow every year, cypress forests are sustainably managed. Natural cordage comes from renewable plant sources. Your building footprint becomes part of the natural cycle instead of fighting against it. Navigate common implementation challenges with proven solutions. Problem: palm thatch is expensive and hard to source. Solution: start with synthetic thatch that mimics traditional properties, then upgrade sections to natural materials as budget allows. Problem: local building codes restrict traditional techniques. Solution: build multiple small structures instead of one large one, staying under permit thresholds. See the troubleshooting guide that prevents expensive mistakes. Mistake: using fresh-cut cypress that shrinks and warps as it dries. Solution: only use seasoned wood that's been air-dried for at least 18 months. Mistake: thatching during humid weather when palm fronds won't shed water properly. Solution: install thatch only during dry weather when materials can cure properly. Watch how seasonal planning prevents construction problems. Best construction time: late fall through early spring when humidity is low and hurricane season is over. Worst construction time: summer rainy season when materials won't cure and storms can destroy unfinished structures. Plan your project timeline around Florida's climate patterns. Feel the community building aspects that enhance your project. Traditional building creates opportunities to connect with neighbours, share skills, and build mutual aid networks. Host work parties where friends help with construction while learning techniques they can use for their own projects. These community connections become valuable during actual emergencies. Modern applications extend far beyond personal use. Schools use traditional building projects to teach environmental science, cultural history, and practical skills. Scout troops build chickees for camping programs. Corporate team-building events use traditional construction to develop cooperation and problem-solving skills. See the therapeutic applications that mental health professionals recommend. Traditional building connects people to natural materials, ancient wisdom, and meaningful work. The repetitive motions of thatching and lashing provide meditative benefits. Completion of a traditional structure builds confidence and self-reliance that improves mental health. Watch how traditional techniques adapt to modern family needs. Contemporary chickees incorporate modern conveniences while maintaining traditional structural principles. Solar panels can power LED lighting. Modern water filtration systems work perfectly with traditional rain catchment. Comfortable furniture fits naturally into flexible traditional spaces. Feel the pride of mastering skills that connect you to centuries of human innovation. Every traditional builder becomes part of an unbroken chain of knowledge that stretches back through generations. Your hands learn techniques that kept entire cultures alive through impossible challenges. Modern validation proves these techniques work better than contemporary alternatives. Engineering studies confirm traditional advantages. Cost analysis shows traditional savings. Environmental impact assessments prove traditional sustainability. Most importantly, real-world disasters demonstrate traditional resilience. Navigate the learning resources that accelerate your progress. The Seminole tribe of Florida offers cultural education programs that include traditional building workshops. University extension programs teach traditional techniques as part of sustainable construction curricula. Online communities connect traditional builders for knowledge sharing and troubleshooting. Start your journey with respect for the knowledge you're learning. Traditional building techniques aren't museum pieces, they're living solutions developed by indigenous peoples who survived in environments that challenged every aspect of their existence. Your implementation honors their innovation while adapting their wisdom to contemporary needs. As you begin implementing these techniques, it's crucial to understand the cultural responsibility that comes with learning traditional knowledge and how to practice these methods with proper respect and attribution. Picture Elder Bobby Frank sitting with his grandson in the shade of a traditional Chickee at the Big Cypress Cultural Center. His weathered hands move slowly as he demonstrates the proper way to prepare palm fronds for thatching. This moment represents something precious, the transfer of knowledge that has kept Seminole culture alive for over 500 years. Every technique I teach you belongs to our people, Bobby tells his grandson. When you learn our ways, you become responsible for keeping them alive. Learning these techniques comes with the responsibility to preserve and respect their origins. This isn't just about building shelters, it's about honoring the ingenuity of people who survived impossible challenges and created solutions that modern science is still trying to understand. Feel the weight of this responsibility as you consider learning traditional techniques. When you study Chickee construction, you're not just acquiring building skills, you're connecting with knowledge that represents centuries of innovation, survival, and cultural identity. The Seminole people developed these techniques not as historical curiosities, but as living solutions to real environmental challenges. See how proper cultural attribution works in practice. Every time you discuss traditional techniques, begin by acknowledging their source. The Seminole people of Florida developed these hurricane-resistant building methods through centuries of refinement. This simple statement recognizes that these aren't generic primitive techniques. They're specific innovations created by specific peoples who deserve recognition. Watch how respectful practitioners approach traditional knowledge. John Campbell, who teaches survival courses using indigenous techniques, always begins his workshops with cultural context. We're learning from the Seminole Nation, he tells his students. These aren't our techniques. We're borrowing this wisdom with gratitude and respect. Understand the difference between appreciation and appropriation. Appreciation means learning techniques while acknowledging their source, supporting the communities that created them, and using the knowledge respectfully. Appropriation means taking techniques without attribution, profiting from traditional knowledge without giving back, or claiming these methods as your own innovation. These simple actions directly support Seminole Nation cultural preservation efforts. When you visit the Chickee Museum, make a donation to their educational programs, or purchase authentic crafts from tribal artisans. You're helping ensure traditional knowledge survives for future generations. Enter the world of active cultural support that makes a real difference. The Chickee Museum in Clewiston, Florida, serves as the official cultural center of the Seminole tribe of Florida. Your admission fees and donations directly fund educational programs, traditional craft workshops, and documentation projects that preserve Chickee construction knowledge. Feel the impact of supporting traditional knowledge keepers. Master builders like Moses Jumper Jr., Pedro Zepeda, and other Seminole artisans depend on cultural tourism and educational programs to make living while preserving their skills. When you take workshops, buy authentic crafts, or support cultural events, you're creating economic incentives for knowledge preservation. See the documentation projects that race against time. The Seminole Tribal Historic Preservation Office works to record traditional techniques before knowledge holders pass away. Their video documentation, oral history projects, and traditional craft preservation efforts need funding to continue. Every donation helps preserve irreplaceable cultural knowledge. Traditional building knowledge holders are aging. Preservation efforts need support now. Master builders who learned from their grandfathers are in their 70s and 80s. Without immediate action to document and transmit their knowledge, centuries of innovation could disappear within a generation. Understand the urgency facing traditional knowledge preservation. Climate change, urban development, and cultural disruption threaten indigenous communities worldwide. traditional building techniques that could help humanity adapt to environmental challenges are disappearing faster than they can be documented. Watch the intergenerational transfer that keeps traditions alive. At Seminole cultural centers, you can observe elders teaching younger tribal members traditional crafts. These programs depend on funding from visitors, donors, and educational institutions. Your support directly enables knowledge transfer that might not otherwise happen. Feel the broader implications of traditional knowledge loss. Chickee construction represents just one example of indigenous innovation that offers solutions to modern problems. When traditional knowledge disappears, humanity loses tested solutions to challenges we're just beginning to face. This approach ensures your implementation honors rather than exploits traditional innovation. By following cultural protocols, acknowledging sources, and supporting indigenous communities, you transform learning into a form of cultural alliance rather than extraction. Learn the protocols that distinguish respectful practice from cultural theft. Always begin educational presentations about traditional techniques with proper attribution. Never claim to have invented or discovered methods that indigenous peoples developed. When teaching others, emphasize the cultural context and source of the knowledge. See how respectful practitioners contribute back to source communities. Survival instructor Tom Brown Jr. donates a percentage of his course fees to indigenous cultural preservation programs. Architect firms using traditional techniques for contemporary buildings create partnerships with tribal communities and hire indigenous consultants. Watch how proper attribution creates educational opportunities. When you acknowledge Seminole innovation in your projects, you create teaching moments that combat stereotypes and build respect for indigenous knowledge. This educational impact multiplies the positive effects of your respectful practice. Feel the satisfaction of ethical learning that benefits everyone. When you approach traditional knowledge with respect, you gain more than just building techniques. You develop relationships, cultural understanding, and a broader perspective on human innovation that enriches your entire worldview. Enter the community of respectful practitioners who support indigenous knowledge preservation. Online forums, workshops, and educational programs connect people learning traditional techniques while maintaining cultural respect. These communities share resources, coordinate support for indigenous programs, and hold each other accountable for ethical practice. See how modern Seminole communities continue innovating while preserving traditions. Contemporary tribal builders create chickees for cultural centers, tourist facilities, and family gatherings. They adapt traditional techniques for modern building codes while maintaining cultural authenticity. This living tradition deserves support and recognition. Modern Seminole innovations included synthetic materials that mimic traditional properties, engineering calculations that validate ancestral techniques, and educational programs that share cultural knowledge with respectful learners. These contemporary contributions prove that traditional knowledge isn't frozen in the past, it's alive and evolving. With this foundation of cultural respect and proper attribution, you're ready to take action and begin your own journey into this remarkable traditional knowledge while supporting the communities that created it. Picture yourself 6 months from now. You're standing in your backyard next to the chickee you built with your own hands. Hurricane warnings flash on your phone, but you're not worried. Your traditional shelter has weathered 3 storms already. Neighbors ask for advice about emergency preparedness. You've become part of a growing community that understands what our ancestors knew. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. Start with this simple project and you'll have hurricane-resistant shelter knowledge in 48 hours. Build a basic lean-to using traditional lashing techniques this weekend. Use rope instead of vines, tarps instead of palm thatch, but focus on learning the flexible joinery that makes traditional structures so strong. Begin your journey with immediate, achievable steps. This weekend, visit your local hardware store and buy 50 feet of natural fiber rope. Practice the basic lashing techniques we've covered: square lashing, diagonal lashing, and round lashing. These fundamental skills form the foundation of all traditional construction. Set up your first practice project in your backyard. Build a simple A-frame lean-to using 2 sturdy branches or poles. Practice the traditional joinery techniques that create flexible, strong connections. Feel how the lashings tighten under stress instead of loosening like rigid connections do. Document your learning journey with photos and notes. Traditional knowledge is preserved through practice and teaching. Your documentation becomes a resource for others learning these techniques. Share your progress with friends and family who might be interested in emergency preparedness. or sustainable building. Join thousands learning traditional techniques while supporting Indigenous communities. Online forums, local workshops, and cultural centres connect you with a growing network of people who understand the value of ancestral wisdom. Together, we're creating a modern renaissance of traditional knowledge. Connect with learning communities that share your interests. The Fox Maple School of Traditional Building in Maine offers hands-on workshops in traditional construction techniques. The Traditional Building Skills Institute provides courses across the country. Wild Abundance in North Carolina teaches traditional shelter building alongside other ancestral skills. Visit the Chickee Museum in Clewiston, Florida, to see authentic Seminole construction and support cultural preservation. Plan your visit during their traditional craft demonstrations when tribal artisans show Chickee construction techniques. Your admission fees directly support educational programs and traditional knowledge preservation. These educational resources provide university-level traditional knowledge instruction. The Classic Planning Academy offers courses in traditional building techniques taught by master craftsmen. Many programs provide certificates that document your skills for potential employers or insurance purposes. Access online resources that accelerate your learning. The Traditional Building Conference Series provides world-class instruction in heritage construction techniques. Universities like Snow College offer traditional building skills institutes that combine academic rigor with hands-on practice. Find local skill-sharing groups through community centres, libraries, and makerspaces. Many areas have mutual aid networks where people teach each other traditional techniques. These grassroots communities often provide the most practical, immediately useful instruction available. Start your own learning group if none exists in your area. Organise monthly workshops where participants share traditional techniques they've learned. Create a tool library where extensive traditional tools can be shared among community members. These networks often become vital resources during actual emergencies. Support organisations working to preserve traditional knowledge. The Indigenous Education Institute documents traditional techniques from cultures worldwide. The Cultural Survival Organisation advocates for Indigenous intellectual property rights and traditional knowledge preservation. Next week's video reveals Arctic survival techniques that outperform modern cold weather gear. We'll explore Inuit innovations in insulation, ventilation, and emergency shelter that keep people alive in minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures using nothing but natural materials. Continue your Heritage Hacks journey with upcoming episodes featuring traditional innovations from cultures worldwide. Discover Japanese joinery techniques that create earthquake-resistant buildings without nails. Learn Aboriginal fire management methods that prevent catastrophic wildfires. Explore Polynesian navigation techniques that cross oceans without instruments. Each episode builds your toolkit of traditional knowledge while honouring the cultures that created these innovations. Subscribe to join our community of respectful learners who understand that Indigenous wisdom offers solutions to modern challenges. Share this knowledge responsibly by always acknowledging its sources, supporting Indigenous communities, and practicing these techniques with gratitude and respect. Your journey into traditional knowledge becomes part of preserving humanity's most valuable innovations for future generations. The Seminole people transformed the deadliest swamps in America into their homeland through engineering genius that modern science is still trying to understand. Their hurricane-proof innovations aren't museum pieces. They're living solutions waiting for respectful modern practitioners to carry them forward into an uncertain climate future. Start building, start learning, start connecting with the wisdom that has kept humans alive through every challenge nature could deliver.